Hey guys, it's Pickles and welcome to another video. This one a bit more about living with the M135 and answering some questions that I've received and also questions that are commonly asked on the forums. And one of the most commonly asked things about this car is what's the MPG like and how much does it cost to keep it fueled? So the official figure from the BMW for the M135i manual, which is what I'm driving, is 35.5 miles per gallon combined, so you know, city and highway driving if you're American. If I'm completely honest, I've seen nowhere near that at all. I commonly get low to mid 20s at best. However, if I do a long drive, a long motorway journey, I can see up to 30s if I'm lucky, but I don't have the lightest of feet in terms of accelerator pedal. So there is possibility to get a bit more MPG out of this car than what I'm getting. I know a lot of people on the forums and a lot of people that I talk to say that they quite often see almost up to 40 MPG on a journey, especially on a long journey on the motorway. I believe that's most likely in the auto. There is a fairly significant difference. I think the official figure is around 38 mpg on the auto as well. One of the reasons for this is it has a much higher gearing ratio, so there is 8 gears in the auto, the top gear pretty much being solely for miles per gallon, so they can get those higher figures. This does mean that the manual is a bit more of a uneconomical car, so it's about a 2 mpg sacrifice in the official figures for having the manual. So another reason there for some people that they might choose the auto along with the sort of much easier drive. Another thing just wanted to quickly mention and give you a bit of an overview of is the boot space, the storage space in this car. So as many of you probably seen from the infamous Top Gear episode where Jeremy Clarkson did a review of this car, he compared it to the Golf and tried to fit some kind of nuclear device in the back, and for some reason it didn't fit in the 1 Series. So I'll give you a realistic overview of what the storage space is really like. So in order to do that, I'll have to get out of the car. Now what I'm going to do is just going to show you the difference with the boot in terms of seats up, seats down. So I didn't opt for the through loading system, but as standard it folds in 2. So this part here, you have the individual seat fold down, so if you've got any narrow packages you can quite easily put that through there. And I'm just going to go around the other side quickly and collapse down the other side. So, and this section here folds in 2. So if you have the through loading system, the difference would be is that instead of the 2 sections, you have down the middle the third one, you have 3 sections, and also here you'd have an armrest, a fold out armrest. So something like a £250 option. If you like the armrest, if you have backseat passengers, it might well be worthwhile. For me, this is mainly for myself and my girlfriend. Very rarely do we have any rear passengers. Now, as you can see, with those seats folded down, it looks cavernous. There's a huge amount of space in there. Obviously you've got right from the back of the boot all the way to the driver's and passenger seats. I would say for me, I've got no requirements for any more space than what I've currently got here. And as you can see, it does fold flat and flush with the boot liner. If you want a bit more noise from the car, fold these seats down. It makes a big difference in terms of the amount of noise that's allowed into the cabin, because obviously the exhaust being both of them down here, it means that a lot more noise comes through because these act as some kind of like sound deadening. Putting them away, very, very simple. There's no buttons or anything, you just literally click it back up here and that's now locked. One other thing to show you as well is the fold up headrest as well. They lock in this position. There's a button on the inside here that you push in and fold them down. I find that as a very useful feature because it's nice to have headrests, but they do get in the way when you don't have back passengers, so it's nice to have the option of both of those things. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the driving modes. So I mentioned these briefly in my previous video, and it's something that obviously everyone who's had any BMW BMW in the last few years knows about. But there are 4 different driving modes that you have in this car, and I think all pretty much BMW cars these days. And as soon as you turn the car on, the first mode it goes into is comfort mode. Comfort, you can basically have the majority of acceleration and power and that kind of thing, but in an adaptive suspension car, the suspension is set to comfort as well. There are also adjustments that you can make in the iDrive system, which I'll show you in a bit, in terms of how you want some of the modes set up. So you can configure, I believe it's Sport and Eco Pro. So Eco Pro, we'll talk about that one next, is kind of the eco mode that you have in the car. Obviously by the name it's eco, but what that means is really deadened throttle response is the way I look at it. It just does nothing until your foot is about 3/4 of the way down the accelerator. And it also does certain things to try and increase your fuel efficiency. So if you have the modes turned on, again I'll show you this later, you can set it so that the aircon won't blow quite as cold, the seat heating, if you have it, will not go quite as warm. Just certain small features that allow the engine to sort of recoup tiny amounts of energy here and there. One other benefit of the Eco Pro mode as well is some people say that it's a good one to use in sort of particularly icy or even snowy weather, because it limits your throttle and it allows you to sort of more slowly pull away from things without sort of just jumping forward. So it would be quite useful to give you a bit of a smoother pull away, I think, especially sort of in autos, that kind of thing. The next mode, we've talked about Eco Pro and Comfort. The next mode is Sport. Now Sport is where things start to get really interesting. In reality, you have not that much of a difference in terms of sort of what it feels like than Comfort, other than that first sort of 1/3 of the accelerator pedal. In Sport, it's just instant. It really is. You put your foot down and it's just all there straight away. So it's so much more fun. But obviously, it's not limiting your power in any of the modes. It's still there. It's harder to get to. So the last mode is Sport Plus, and the Sport Plus is essentially Sport, but it has a few more additional things that it'll do for you. It opens up the exhaust a little bit more, allows a bit more noise through. If you like the pops and bangs that you get from the exhaust, you're more likely to hear them with Sport Plus mode on. And also it turns off the DTC, the dynamic traction control. It doesn't turn it fully off. That's, you know, something you have to do yourself. But it basically gives you a little bit more control over the car in terms of, you know, what the back end's going to do. Another question that's commonly asked to me is the suspension. What's it like? Notoriously, M Sport suspension on BMWs is quite rough, it's quite bumpy, it's not the most forgiving of rides. Now, with the M135 and with most of BMW cars, you have the option of the adaptive suspension, which is programmable via the drive mode selector, which I'll be going into a little bit later on. I didn't opt for that. It's about a £550, £595 optional extra. And again, depending on who you ask, some people will say it's the first thing they tick. It's the, you know, by far the best thing to have on there. I was tempted because I like the idea of being able to switch to a comfort mode and just sort of have a bit more of a gentle cruiser. But I have to say, not having the adaptive, I've not regretted it once since having the car. This car is not bumpy, it's not rough. For the type of car it is, it's actually a very well composed car. I'm not going to say that it's the smoothest ride that I've ever had, it's the smoothest car I've ever been in, but it's really not too bad at all. It soaks up the potholes and the rubbish roads that we have here in the UK pretty well, but it's also pretty good whilst you're pushing on as well. There's still you know, pretty good control. There's not too much roll on the body or anything like that. So I think it's a pretty good balance, and I myself, if I was to spec another 1 Series, I probably would stick with the M Sport standard suspension. I think if I were going for a different class, you know, a 3, 5 Series, any of those, the adaptive suspension would probably be something a bit more suited to it, in my opinion, because they are more likely going to be sort of, you know, family cars, cruising cars, that kind of thing. So it is a bit more of a benefit to you then. So let's have a look at the iDrive and the various control systems within the car, the various screens and what they do. So iDrive screen. Obviously this is where pretty much everything is controlled. You've got your music, you've got sat nav, you've got all of these things, and this is just the basic setup. This is just the basic nav. This is not the pro nav. This was a non-optional cost. Then you've got here the screen, which is between the dials. You see where it says M135 there, that is also part of the screen as well. That's not there permanently. This is really useful in terms of showing you current statistics and things around the car. So it'll tell you current MPG as an average. You can switch between different modes there. So that is sort of your live MPG. You've got your average miles per hour, the date, which is always nice to have, and then miles to empty. The one thing that a lot of people don't know or ask about as well is these buttons here. They look like and basically are your preset for radio, but they can also be used to preset other things as well. So for example, if we just lightly touch the button rather than actually pressing it, it will tell us what that preset is. So if we look at the screen here, we can see that number 1 is set to control display. What that will do is it will turn the display off for me. So if I'm driving at night and I don't need the display on, I can turn it off, which is quite nice. Press it to bring it back on. But then along that, I've got just lightly pushing over these buttons again, I've got various different things here. Vehicle status. Now this is a really useful feature that some people may or may not know about. Here, this will show us the various features about the car. So first we've got the tyre pressure. I'm not moving, so it won't show, hence it says no tyre pressures will be measured while driving. It will give us that figure in PSI. You can change that in the settings as well. And also, interestingly enough, is the temperature of the tyres as well. So you can actually see if you've been driving quite hard, if your temperatures of your tyres are a little bit high, it will also change the colour. We've also got engine oil level. There is no oil dipstick on this car, so this is the only way you can check the oil. And then you've got your service requirements as well, so this will tell me that thankfully everything at this point is okay. And also you can click check control. So if anything like your fuel needs topping up, your washer fluids needs topping up, it will bring up this little warning triangle symbol on your dashboard, and if you didn't actually see it when it came up, you can come into this screen and take a look at what it's telling you. So you click that button. Thankfully at the moment I've got no faults. Now, how to actually get to the vehicle status menu without having it as a shortcut, because obviously we won't all have that. If you press the menu button on your iDrive and come down here to vehicle information and then vehicle status, so that will give you all of that sort of information there. So that was another one of my shortcuts here. I also have trip computer, so this will link into what I was telling you earlier. This has not been reset since I've had the car, so 4,957 miles of calculations on here. My average consumption over that time has been 22.7 miles per gallon, so way off of the 35.5 estimated by BMW. However, obviously this has been a new car, it's been running, I've been having fun in it, and basically I do a lot of stop-start town traffic driving and then quite short motorway blasts, so I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. That's fine, that'll do me. Driving mode. So as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the driving modes, which just to very briefly show is controlled by this button here, but what I mentioned earlier is that these are configurable. Pretty much just a quick overview of the things that you can do here, and just very briefly with regards to these buttons, all you need to do at any stage that you are in there, so if you've found a page that you really want to keep track of, so for example contacts, if that's something you're interested in, you can basically go onto that page and you just hold over this button, and you can see that here number 6 is unassigned. If I press and hold, it will save that. So now when I hold over this button again, it says number 6 is contacts, so next time it's there. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will be putting out a new video every 1 to 2 weeks. Hopefully got a few interesting ideas coming up, and that won't solely be based around this car, you'll be glad to hear. So thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video.